In this video, we'll dig further into the sources of unemployment and how economists classify the different sources of unemployment. Unemployment is a serious and complicated problem with a variety of causes. To most effectively address such a problem, we need to break it down and look for each cause separately. We begin by noting that the causes of short-run fluctuations in unemployment are different than the causes of long-run average unemployment rate, called the natural rate of unemployment. In its definition, the natural rate of unemployment is the unemployment rate at which the actual unemployment rate fluctuates, and is expected unemployment as a byproduct of economic activity. We can separate the natural rate of unemployment into two components, the structural and the frictional unemployment. Then we have the cyclical unemployment rate, and that is the deviation of unemployment from its natural rate, and we associate cyclical unemployment with business cycles. In this illustration, you see the U.S. unemployment rate from 1960 to 2016. The unemployment rate is the red line that you see, and the blue line is the natural rate of unemployment. It's important for you to know that the natural rate of unemployment is a measurement of the long-run trends in the labor market, and therefore is an estimate. The unemployment rate is a measurement that is calculated using labor market statistics. Now, the gap at any given point between the natural rate of unemployment and the unemployment rate is called cyclical unemployment. So, when the unemployment rate is below the natural rate, as it is here illustrated, we are in an economic boom. On the other hand, when the unemployment rate is above the natural rate, we are experiencing a recession. Now, all the shaded marks on this graph represent recessions, and as you can see, every time we have a recession, the unemployment rate increases well above the natural rate of unemployment. In the near future, we'll talk about the cyclical nature of the unemployment rate and where those ups and downs come from. But for now, let's stick to explaining the long-run behavior of the labor markets. Now, even when the economy is doing well, there's always going to be some unemployment, and that is going to be due to frictional unemployment and structural unemployment. Let's talk about frictional first. Frictional unemployment occurs when workers spend time searching for the jobs that best suit their skills and tastes. It always takes time for these matches to happen, and is short-term for most workers. So there will always be some frictional unemployments, even in incredibly healthy labor markets. On the other hand, we have structural unemployment, and this is caused by a shortage of jobs caused by structural forces within the economy. And this is going to be the focus of our discussion after the next active learning exercise. And this can usually be longer term. So to just make sure that we understand the definition of frictional unemployment, what I would like you to do is think about all of these scenarios, and then tell me which of the following would be most likely to reduce frictional unemployment. Please take a minute and submit your answers on Top Hat. Now for scenarios A and C, these are likely to reduce structural unemployment, not frictional unemployment. We'll talk more about it in detail in the following slides. Scenarios B and E are likely to increase frictional unemployment, not reduce it. Lastly, for scenario D, this is likely to speed up the process of matching workers and jobs, which would reduce frictional unemployment. Now let's switch gears to explaining structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is simply a job shortage caused when wages are kept above equilibrium levels for some artificial reason. So in this case, WE is the equilibrium level of wages. At this point, there is no unemployment because everybody who wants a job at that wage will get it, and the employers that want to hire at the wage will find a worker. However, let's suppose that for some artificial reason, wages stay at a level W1. In this case, the demand for labor is at QD, whereas the supply of labor is at QS. That gap between the demand for workers and the supply of workers is unemployment. Artificially high wages can happen for many reasons. Let me speak about 3 of them. Number 1 is minimum wage laws. They are legislation that brings the wage for the least skilled or least experienced workers above their equilibrium level, and they cause structural unemployment. This is an example of a program that can potentially hurt workers it's trying to help. Another reason for artificially high wages are unions. Unions exert their market power to negotiate higher wages for workers. And statistically speaking, the typical union worker earns about 20% higher wages than a non-union worker for doing the same type of job. At the same time, union workers get more benefits than non-union workers. So are unions good or bad? Well, on one side we have critics that says that unions are cartels that raise wages above the equilibrium, which causes unemployment and or depresses wages in non-union labor markets. This last point is worth emphasizing. All labor markets are connected. So if higher than equilibrium level of wages happen in unionized labor markets, the people that are not in the union are going to leave those labor markets and join other labor markets. The increase in the supply of workers is likely to depress wages in these other markets. On the other side, advocates of unions say that unions counter the market power of large firms and make firms more responsive to worker concerns. Historically, there's been abuses on corporate America, and workers have been receiving less than the fair amount of wages. So critics and advocates have good points. I'll let you make your mind about whether unions are good or bad. And lastly, another reason is efficiency wages. Efficiency wages are wages that firms pay voluntarily to boost worker productivity. And there are 3 reasons why companies might do that. Number 1 is worker health. In less developed countries, poor nutrition is a common problem. Paying higher wages allows workers to eat better, makes them healthier and more productive. Number 2, worker turnover. Hiring and training new workers is costly. Paying high wages gives workers more incentives to stay, and therefore reduces turnover. Number 3 is worker quality. Offering higher wages attracts better job applicants, increases the quality of the firm's workforce, and therefore increases their productivity. And lastly, we have worker effort. If workers are paid above equilibrium wages in non-unionized companies, they have incentives to work harder and to keep their jobs.